Okay, well, I think we're going to get this thing started. And I just want to welcome everybody to our first Workplace Pulse webinar. This is designed to be a series, something that hopefully brings information that is valuable to all of us. And in that spirit, all of us means collectively sharing our intel of what we're seeing during these really challenging times through the pandemic and what it does for us in the office and in the business world, and how we're maintaining our culture and our collaboration and other things that are so vital to everyday business. My name is Kirk. I'm the managing director of the downtown branch for Colliers International here in Utah. And I want to thank everybody for joining today. We are, again, really excited to launch this webinar today. And we're wanting to make this a series. We're wanting to provide an ongoing set of webinars, if you will, that will provide updated information in this changing environment. So we want to explore what we've learned. We want to talk about what's emerging and also what's possible. Because certainly in this environment of work from home, lockdowns, coming back to the office, we're all developing strategies. And I'm really excited to be able to introduce today's panel and also my co-moderator with today's webinar. So without further ado, let's get started. The panel will consist today of Kristy Schmidt. Kristy is Vice President of Corporate Real Estate Workplace at LendingClub, and David Alsop. He's the head of HR for Ultradent, and Mindi Cox, who is Senior Vice President for OC Tanner, and she's Senior Vice President of People. And we're really excited to welcome you all today. And then my partner in crime, so to speak, with this is Kate North. And I've had the pleasure of working with Kate for many months now. Kate is the Vice President of our Workplace Advisory Group with Colliers International. She is bringing a wealth of information and experience to the table in the workplace advisory sector. And this is a designed webinar to be interactive as well. So as we get going, we would love to involve you. There'll be polling questions, but also a Q&A. And with that ongoing conversation, if you will, please feel free to log your questions in the Q&A box, as we do want this to be interactive. So with that, Kate, why don't you take it away?
Okay, Chris. Well, thank you. I am so delighted to be here. This has been a dream in the making for Chris and I for a number of months, because I think, as Chris had very well articulated, it's through community that we can get through any of this. And today I'm very excited to be able to share with you the latest research that we have in regards to what we've learned through COVID, but also introduce you to some amazing leaders. And what I love is that we've also got really great people and place leaders, because it's requiring all of us coming together to really solve for some of these types of problems. So now what I want to do is be able to kind of share with you, or start it out with a poll. We are really curious about your experience, and we're going to launch a poll real quickly to find out how you're doing in working from home. I'm struggling. It's working, but it's not ideal. It's business as usual. I'm adapting and productive. It's working well, and I'm highly productive. Or I'm not even working from home. Would love to hear what your experience is like. We know everybody's has been different. Okay. It looks like a whopping 43% say it's working, but it's not ideal. That there are probably some wonderful things that you're going to learn today that at a minimum, you'll be able to start to apply. Others may require a little bit more consideration in terms of strategies and technologies and things along those lines. Now, the second question, the second poll, is really around understanding how your organization's doing. What is the success rate? Low success, it's tough and we can't wait to get back to the office. Moderate success, we're productive, but can we sustain over time? And then high success, we're thriving and we will use work from home as a competitive advantage going forward. How is your organization doing? Okay, moderate success. We're productive, but we sustain over time? Yep, you've hit the right webinar for us. But it looks like there's also some people that have got high success, so that's great. Okay, the third one is really trying to understand what challenges your organization's facing at this point in time. That will be very helpful for our panelists as we move into the conversation. Maintaining, and I believe this is multiple choice, so you can, I believe, why doesn't everybody choose their top three just so that we can start to see what's really burning? So maintaining culture and values, employee engagement and motivation, well-being and burnout, team cohesion and trust, managers' expertise in leading remote teams, onboarding and mentoring, setting expectations for the future and the level of choice, determining a hybrid model for the workplace. What are your greatest challenges? Okay, employee engagement and motivation actually tied very closely to well-being and burnout, topped with maintaining culture and values and probably a little bit of that hybrid model. Okay, it looks like that from this that onboarding is pretty good, which is great. I think a lot of organizations are learning some of those types of pieces, but let's dive in. Let's talk a little bit about where we've been in the COVID journey. I really love this change curve that was produced many years ago by Kubler-Ross. And as I was preparing for a change management session, I thought, my gosh, this starts to really fall in line with what we've experienced over the past 9 months. I mean, let's just think about it. In March, we were all shocked. When we were told what was happening, we had to instantly deploy. We grabbed a monitor or two, maybe our task chair, we went home. People rallied. We had heroic efforts from IT teams, from risk management team. And as soon as we went home, we started working on our return to office. We're perhaps a little bit in the denial. Maybe it was also, we had no idea of the magnitude of this virus and the longevity of it. But teams started to really put their head around thinking about what could they do for the return to office. That's when we're meeting with the landlords to understand what types of lease options might be available. What's the building doing? What's HVAC? How do we think about social distance in the space? Thinking about the temperature checks, behaviors, all of those kinds of things that happen. And as we move more in towards May timeframe, that's when we're starting to see the beginnings of the social unrest. Political, with the elections coming up, we're seeing deep concerns about the global economy. Lots of frustration starting to take place, summer vacations being delayed or tweaked heavily. And the realization that this may be here for a bit longer is starting to settle in, especially when we think down here to the point of where we're depressed. I mean, this is when we're starting to think about the kids going back to school and how are we going to manage through that? Thinking about the long-term implications. Will I ever see my colleagues again? Will we ever have some normality back into our lives? And what was started to happen, we saw early signs of this in October and now certainly November, is that organizations are saying, you know what? Some of this has actually been a blessing in disguise. We've learned from this. There's been some silver linings. How do we take what we've learned and then start to think about a new way of working for us? So honestly, I think we are at the perfect time to start this conversation today so that we can really begin to prepare for what's next. I'm going to share with you some research that we pulled. Certainly the beginnings of COVID, our team rallied. We did a survey in early March or right after COVID to begin to capture what we consider the world's greatest workplace, experiment ever. And we wanted to be able to find out what was going on. So we ran that survey, about 5,000 respondents. And then just recently, we've closed our second survey so that we could compare what happened in the spring to the fall. What are some of the things that are starting to shift as we have more time working from home? What's actually happening? So here's what we learned. Number one, productivity. Productivity has been minimally impacted. This was the first piece that we saw from our spring survey, that more than 3 out of 4. And when we looked at it again towards September, we're finding out that we're actually even more productive than where we were before. And that was tied to that, and breaking down the productivity is that we also found out that we're working longer hours. And I think we can probably all attest to feeling that many people that had the commute are using that commute time and continuing to work, but the hours are long, and we're missing that separation between work and office. We're also finding out that managers are becoming much more effective. They're getting the hang of it. The technology tools that they've used have really been very helpful for them in keeping the teams connected and together. And as we drill down further, we try to look at the type of work that's being done and where they're productive. We find that it is easier to do focus and individual work. It's better at home than in the office. In fact, we saw that by about 52%. That we also found that there's fewer disruptions at home, depending upon, of course, if you have children, and because you're in a control and more of an environment that you can control. And we saw that it was better by about 41% than in the office. And that people are also more creative. And this is probably also stemming from a lot of the neuroscience research around when you feel more comfortable and there's level of informality, that you're also able to do more creative type of work. When we think about productivity plus, we're thinking about what are those things that help and really activate teams. So we've heard that there's actually been, people feel supported in terms of relevant and good communication, that they feel that their opinions have been valued, and that they're able to introduce new ideas. And thinking through this and why, what we believe, and we'll be getting into this into some discussion with the panel as well, is that when we're all working from home, it's a level playing field. And that is going to be something that we're going to need to address going back into the office. How do we maintain that to where everybody's got equality in regards to the expression of ideas and collaboration? From a manager's experience, we found that the managers actually feel that their teams are working more productively at home, that it has increased almost by 50%. We know that they're building those new skills. I think many of them are realizing that it's not about managing by line of sight. It's about, measuring by results, setting really clear expectations, keeping that work visible. Many tools like Zoom and Teams have really helped teams tie together and be able to have places where they can work collectively. And that they also are starting to really think through more about this need for empathy, being able to have more one-on-ones to prevent more of the isolation that we know has occurred. What was really remarkable in this research is that we found a direct linkage for managers. So managers that felt that their teams were more productive actually showed an improved work-life balance. So that's awesome. But there are also some challenges. We know that onboarding has been an issue. I think many of them are really trying to work through that one. The two that are the most difficult is really around this team cohesion and connection. And also the mentoring. How do we continue to be able to mentor when we don't have those, fortuitous encounters that allow for us to ask a quick question? As for work-life balance, it has continued to improve as well. Not only through in the spring, we saw 2 out of 3. But it was also reported that they still miss the separation between work life and home life. And we saw that it has slightly increased in fall, which was really a surprise to our team. We thought the work-life balance, because of the duration, the Zoom fatigue, et cetera, would have weakened, but it actually it's holding its own. However, we do find that there's more concern now. We saw that in what you guys had also included in the poll is the risk of the burnout, is that 41% reported working more hours and 87% feel the need to be online more. That's not good, and that's a concern. We talked about the mentoring, the importance of that, and then FOMO, the fear of missing out. If I'm not there, if I'm not present, will I be skipped for the next opportunity to be on a cool project or, a promotion type of thing? And this is something that's going to be really important as we move into hybrid strategies. How do organizations wrestle with new guidelines and team norms that don't require people to be face to face in order to be considered and thought of? It's going to come from leadership and it's going to be tied to culture. And thinking about this piece around connection, we also have been given a lot of thought around what kind of environments are going to be truly impactful. If people can do focused and individual work from home, why would they come into the office? And when we ask that question, what do they value most? It's that impromptu, it's the unstructured, it's a conversation and a lunch with a colleague. It's maintaining relationships, and it's also that separation between work and life. When we think about the return to office, we're still considering that, especially knowing the vaccination's coming, which is good, but it will still take a while. So when we do re-enter, all the things that we thought about back in, April, May timeframe when we were focusing on the return to the office will be important. Air quality is going to be keen, being able to make sure that when people arrive that there's clear guidelines. Social distancing will probably adhere to for a while, and we'll certainly see a reduction in the density that we've once seen. But when we asked the employees what matters most to them with the return to office, the number one was that they want choice. 68% said that having the choice to determine when and if I come into the office is going to be most important to me. Second, but further down the line, was cleanliness and just wanting to make sure that they understand what the strategy is to ensure that people, that all of the accommodations, including the air quality, will be clean and that colleagues are behaving. We know from previous surveys that when there's been an agreement around the behaviors and wearing a mask, and colleagues don't see their peers wearing a mask, that it can also cause a lot of concern, anxiety, and stress. Building upon the theme of choice, not only did we ask around work from home, but we also wanted to understand, is there any interest in being able to think differently about the types of spaces? Is it just home and office, or can we begin to think about third place and flex spaces and co-working? And it was interesting, 38% are open to working in these kinds of environments, and that those under 30 definitely had much more of an aptitude for them. Where it's starting to play out is perhaps when, if you don't have a great place in a home setting, and perhaps you have to struggle with mass transit to be able to get into the office, that being able to have something that would be walkable where you could be able to have a work from or an office was going to be important. And again, on choice and talent, one of the things we wanted to find out, because we've all heard the stories of people fleeing, San Francisco and New York because the cost of living's too high, but also to begin to think about, would they really move from an urban location to something more suburban and rural for cost of living, but maybe lifestyle as well? And we can see here that 25% are considering it. And if you're between 20 to 30, that jumps to about 35%. Expectations of the employees is high. We know that they want to be able to continue to work from home. This is here to stay. Organizations are thinking about it as a competitive advantage to attract the type of talent. But what we've seen in terms of the desired days is that it's increased definitely since the spring. We saw 34% since the spring increase in terms of wanting to work from home 2 days a week. And we saw also a direct correlation between the length of the commute and the number of desired days going from 3 to 4 to 5 days based upon that commute time. Then we asked a very provocative question: would you give up your desk if you could work from home 3 days a week? And we found that 52% said that they would give up their desk. When we begin to think about what does this all mean and what are other organizations doing, I think what is starting to emerge is that many companies are thinking about this strategically. They're building out different types of scenarios. Some of the top drivers really stem around talent, especially if you're in the tech sector or if you're in an organization that's going to require technology talent to be able to take it to the next level. Productivity is very important. Let's find out how we help people work at their very, very best. And then what can we do to reduce cost? We know that real estate is the second highest cost next to people. Do we right size our space? Do we think differently about this, especially the unknowns with the flexibility? All of these organizations are doing different levels of strategies and thinking differently. Most of them are really doing and scrubbing a lot of their own internal data to be able to create those types of scenarios. For many of our clients, we found that there was a bit of a deer in headlights. They just weren't sure exactly what to do. There was just no end in sight without having a vaccination, et cetera. So we started putting together some scenarios. We have a multidiscipline team through our consultancy, and we developed 4 different scenarios that I'm going to quickly go through. And your job is to listen closely, and then quickly we're going to be voting on which of these scenarios might be most probable in your world. So here they are. Let me give a little context. At the bottom, you see that it's going to be likelihood from low to high. And then on the left-hand side, the impact from low to high. So low impact, low likelihood would be back to 2019. We're not going to do anything differently. We just want to return exactly to where we were pre-COVID. The second one is the office is digital. Think Minority Report. Think that it is digital first, that the real estate pretty much will go away. This is a big play on technology. This is around innovation, leveraging technology, a higher increase in the amount of investment that would go to technology. This is the digital nomads that really, they build relationships online. These are the gamers. These are the Gen Xers that have grown up with the type of technology. The scenario number 3 is disruptive, but not quite as disruptive as that. And that is really where organizations, especially in the tech sector, are going after talent. And they want to be able to provide choice to be able to lure them into their organization. They don't care if they're in Bangladesh, Bangalore, Boise, or Boston. They want that talent, and that they will create environments that would help support them in different satellite locations, maybe co-working locations, most likely moving from a campus approach into something much more flexible based upon the geographies of where their people work. But again, very technology centric, more virtual, if you will. And the fourth one is really around organizations that are saying, you know what, there maybe have been some silver linings here. What do we take? What are the good parts of what we've learned? How do we build upon them? How do we begin to think about creating a strategy that supports both working from home and working from the office, more towards that hybrid model? Their real estate portfolio primarily would stay about the same. It would be right sized appropriately, but they're not going to be giving up, headquarter locations, et cetera. So these are the 4. And now we're going to take you to the poll and ask you to vote. Which one do you think would be most plausible for your organization? Back to the office, same as 2019. Office is digital. Disruption's the new normal, and adapting to change. And the answer is adapting to change. So the evolutionary approach. Well, just so you don't think you're alone, this is, as we've been testing this throughout really the globe, that's the one that I think most organizations are leaning towards. And it's perfect, is because that's going to be really kind of the topic of the discussion today. So let's jump in with our wonderful panelists. I invite them all to turn on their cameras and take themselves off mute. And we've got Mindi Cox again from OC Tanner, Dave Alsop from Ultradent, Kristy Schmidt from LendingClub, and we've invited Kirk back in so that he can represent also some real estate and Colliers. So panelists, I've got one question for you, and Mindi, we'll start with you. Can each of you just take a few minutes and introduce us a little to your organization, and then tell us a little bit about your role and what one word would you use to describe right now? Mindi.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here with you. Just a little bit of an introduction about OC Tanner. We are a 93-year-old homegrown Salt Lake City-based company that is now global with 6 locations all over the world. But at our core, we are a culture company who partners with our clients to elevate the employee experience and business results through strategic recognition and appreciation. So it's a wonderful, positive place to be in. We are very, very fortunate to partner with a healthy percentage of the Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 who are looking to be really intentional about how they build their cultures and what the employee experience is like in their organizations. I have an inside out sort of role. I love leading my internal team of our global people team and being part of the executive team at OC Tanner. But I also love the privilege of working closely with our clients as they, in these moments, just like you, are saying, we want to look around, we want to learn, we want to be better. And I'm often invited to share what we're doing, to consult with them, and to help give them sort of a bird's eye view into what the best organizations are doing when they are thinking about employee experience and what's next and what value people in place can bring to the employee experience. And if I had to say one word that is really sort of defining our experience right now, it's connection. And that might seem just a little bit strange, but some of the practices that we've adopted, some of the ways of communicating have really brought our organization closer together and honestly leveled the playing field for a lot of our global partners. So it's been a lot of silver lining for us. We're ready to be done and experience the best of this and leave the worst of it behind, but certainly learning some beautiful lessons through all these challenges.
And just one question, Mindi, out of those scenarios, which one would you see OC Tanner is?
Oh, we're definitely adapting. I would say, I don't know how your workplace goes back. I don't know that, I think this is one of those moments in all of our lives and in history when there was before and there's after. And, being able to build back and evolve into a space that's very, very intentional, that really is a place of invention is such a privilege, I think, as a leader in an organization right now, because there's not an expectation, right? There's just understanding your people and getting really intentional about what and who you want to be and discovering what the best path forward is for you. I feel like we've just been able to throw off a lot of, well, we could never, and I don't know how we would, and we just have. And so as we return, we'll figure out what that looks like, but we get to be very intentional about it, which is just a huge opportunity for us.
Oh, I love that connection. That's exactly what we found in our research. It's about connection. So Dave, what's going on at Ultradent?
Yeah, Ultradent is a global manufacturer. We pride ourselves on our purpose being literally bringing smiles to the world through our dental products. So we are in over 160 countries. We have 7 sales offices and we manufacture right here in South Jordan, Utah. We are 40 years in the making and we are continuing to build into the future and do some great things for oral health across the globe. So I've been at the organization for about 3.5 years now, leading HR for the organization. I also own an LLC on the outside called Jump Spark, where I'm very passionate about bringing the human experience to a better place, both in workplace and community. And I'm very excited to be able to be here and share what we're doing at Ultradent to do the same thing in our human experience in our workplaces.
So what one word would you use to describe Ultradent today?
My word is growing. We are truly growing as a business in our sales and getting to an even better place than we were before COVID. But we're also growing as human experiential tactics, strategies. And so our workforce is growing in new ways and new ways of doing things. So we really are growing in many, many ways. And I think typically we just think about growth in sales, but our human experience is growing dramatically because of COVID.
Wonderful. And where would you be on the scenarios?
We're really in between the adapting to change and disruption. We have a key word that we're talking about, and that's solution finding. We really focus on taking opportunities to find solutions when problems are faced for us. And that's been one of our key advantages in our industry is COVID was a disruption. We had challenges, we had layoffs, we had the same things that a lot of companies experienced, but we looked for solutions through that. And the funny thing about the disruption of this pandemic has been we've found some amazing things to come out of this with. And so we're really looking at this with the hardships, but also the opportunities of finding solutions through it. So solutions are a key mindset we're trying to develop for our future.
Oh, that's great. And it will be an evolution. I think those that may be in that scenario 4, it's not going to be that that's your end game. This is a journey. We are going to be continually evolving through this.
Yep.
So Kristy, tell us a little bit about LendingClub.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristy Schmidt, and I lead the corporate real estate and workplace team at LendingClub. LendingClub is a fintech company specializing in marketplace lending, and we're based in San Francisco with about 600 employees here. And last year, we opened up our customer servicing center in Lehigh. And that's made up of about 400 employees, mostly our customer service agents.
Very good. Yeah, you can tell you're definitely not in Utah today.
Yes, I've got San Francisco in the background and it's getting ready to rain. So, which we
And
just.
what one word would you use to describe, and which scenario are you?
So I'm going to choose 2 words. So we are a bit fatigued about this pandemic, but we're also really energized about the future of the company and where we're going to emerge post-pandemic. This pandemic has been an ultra marathon, and we still have a long way to go until we can reopen our offices safely to all of our employees. We all have Zoom fatigue. Many are tending to work more hours because there's no real end to the workday. Our home and work lines are blurred right now. However, as we look to the post-pandemic future, we're all really energized about our business strategy and getting to return to the office and connect in person again. I would say between the scenarios, I would say we're somewhere between number 3 and number 4. My team and I were doing scenario planning, really looking at what the potential is for the future of the workplace at LendingClub, kind of looking at the pros and cons of each scenario. And the way that we're thinking about it is 2020 has been the year of massive disruption. 2021, I think, is going to be about testing and piloting our ideas that we're developing now. And then 2022 will kind of be the implementation year, where we pick the best silver linings coming out of this pandemic and rolling them into our workplace.
No, that's good. So Chris, being the leader of the downtown Colliers tribe, what word would you use that kind of represents where the team is, and what are your thoughts in regards to different scenarios, et cetera?
Well, thanks, Kate. You know, I'm proud to be part of this organization. Colliers is the largest real estate group company in Utah. We have 5 offices throughout the state. Globally, we're fastest growing. We are very entrepreneurial, and that's what, you know, I think brokerage needs to be about. And so I would use the term for this company as evolution. And I love Mindi. Mindi, when you said before and after, I just had to think of when I had kids, and my dad said, "There's before, and there's after," and that's the first thing that came into my mind, because in this evolution, adapting technology, we have to be able to evolve and create the ways that we do business going forward. Utah is very dynamic and positioned extremely well. And it almost feels like when you pull out of your driveway in the morning and you're, you know, the engine's perfect, the wheels are true, but you forgot the safety brake is on. You know, something is just sort of dragging you. So I think these are exciting times, and we're going to come out of this and you know, move forward into our next phase.
Yeah, I think it is around the spirit of resiliency. We've all learned so much, and that's kind of what I want to get into next is, and I think Dave, you had kind of alluded that there's a lot that you're learning. Can you share, you know, like what's working? Like what was a surprise of a problem that you immediately started to face, and how did you solve for it? So I'd love to kind of dig into some of these things that have been challenging, but also that you've been able to look at different solutions for.
Well, when we When we started out and faced this pandemic, we are a manufacturing organization. So 50% of our organization cannot work remote, cannot have a technological solution to their job outside of the machine in front of them. And then 50% of our organization had to go home to protect that workforce on site. So our challenge became both cultural on how we stay unified as a culture. We're very proud about the core value system that has been at the forefront of our organization to keep us unified and working together. But we became a divided workforce. And so we had this challenge to figure out, how do we stay connected? How do we stay unified? And how do we stay growing in an environment where we were so used to being there with each other? And the ironic thing that we found is we were very fortunate to have a very specific technology strategy a year before COVID that focused on online interactions. It focused on bringing our on-site workers more close to the technologies that connect to the office worker. And as we came into the pandemic, we had certain functions that adapted very quickly to just jumping right into our Microsoft Teams app, using it, connecting, and finding new ways of working and connecting. We had some that struggled, that we had to get up to speed and learn how to connect online in the same way you would on site. And what we found is, you said it earlier, the equaling of the playing field. Ironically, what the reality of industry has been for many years in workforces that think about being on-site workforces is the louder voices, the louder demonstrative voices sometimes dominate the equations in the company, in the meetings. And what we found as we've gone online is, there's people like me, that I'm an extra introvert, and the microphone kind of makes me just as loud as that other person that's more demonstrative. And so we found our meetings are more inclusive, our meetings are more connective, and the technologies can actually bring us closer when we do it right. So one quick example that we found is the people that went home, we had to help leaders understand, you're going to need to connect with your teams more frequently. You're going to need to be connected. And we started out on a weekly basis, and then we increased our one-on-one interactions between managers and employees. And what evolved was the fact that they learned and listened to their employees saying, I need help to connect human-wise, not just business-wise. And so we added activities. We added team building to our normal business meetings. And ironically, people got to know each other better, and they got to know more people better because all the voices were equalized on those meetings. So the technology truly has been a connector for us. And I think that's something that not a lot of people expected, that are used to, we're an on-site workforce, we're connecting in person. Technology actually has been a very positive thing for us, and we still have work to do, but I truly believe that when we use the technology right, it can actually make us more inclusive and more impactful on the results we're looking for.
Oh, that's great. Kristy, what about you? What are you learning?
Yeah, so we learned a lot really, really quickly. Our culture pre-pandemic was most of our employees would come into the office on a daily basis. We were at about a 75% utilization on average, which is pretty high. So when we sent our employees home in San Francisco in mid-March, it was actually a fairly seamless transition from work to home. Most people in San Francisco have laptops, and we were on Zoom before. There was a little bit of a learning curve of everyone setting up a Zoom meeting for every single meeting. But I would say for the most part, it was fairly seamless. For Lehigh, it was a little bit of a different situation, where we have our call center agents who were not set up to go home. So we had to come up with a new strategy for them. And we had a really tight-knit working group who came up with the technology that we needed to purchase, get them a box of their tools and a chair. And we had a drive-through in front of the building. And as the equipment would come in, we would send the team home. So we were able to keep our employees safe and get everybody up and running fairly seamlessly. So that was, something that was a little bit of a hurdle. It wasn't perfect, but it's worked out really well, and our agents are very successful at home. So that's one of the things that we'll continue to look at as one of our competitive advantages moving forward is having a hybrid workforce, not going back to pre-pandemic times when everyone got up in the morning and just came into the office. We are going to have to be very strategic and rethink what that looks like in the future.
Well, bravo for digging in and thinking about how do you actually help them be successful? Because call centers, they're typically are in training. A lot of mentoring takes place on that face-to-face level. You've got security, there's a number of different, hurdles to overcome. So well done you.
Thank
Now,
you.
Mindi, tell us about what you've been learning. I know that you had described a couple of really interesting things that you were doing as well.
We've definitely learned the value of communication, and I would say in a very sort of organic, accidental way. We began daily messages with our people that were very pragmatic in the beginning about, this is where we are, this is what you can expect, this is where you pick up your drive-through equipment and your chair and whatever else you need to become functional in your home office. But it also, I think it was Utah's earthquake about 10 days into the work from home that really sparked a turn for us where it became really personal. And we were dealing with fear. We were dealing with people who just uncertainty, right? Creates such anxiety. And so those messages turned a lot to mental health and how can we support each other? How can we recognize that, one of the phrases that we've co-opted is the same storm, different boats. So we're all trying to navigate through the same storm, but we realize your life at home is different than my life at home is different than your life at home. And we all handle stress and anxiety differently. We have, expectations that need to be expressed and even just different levels of expectation that we need to set as leaders. Like what is really realistic? What is it that we can get done? And in some cases, it's more than we were able to do before. And in other cases, we need to adjust to allow for some of the realities of somebody's situation. So we've always talked about whole life awareness. I mean, we're the company that has, sends dinner home to your family and flowers home to your partner and has a health center on site and a gym and we're making sure that we're surrounding people with a lot of different resources to help make their whole life better, not just their work life, but their whole life. But this has just up-leveled that to the extreme, to where we know everybody's names in your household and we know sort of what's going on, whether you're that extrovert or that introvert. It wanders into meetings and you can't help but ask. And so some of that for us has been leadership training, like really leaders going, I don't know if I can ask about that person that just walked in the background of the picture. Or can I, what is okay to make conversation about from some very new managers and others where, we just have to remind people on a daily basis that what they're feeling, other people are feeling too. And here's where you can go to get some support for that. So I think if this pandemic has done anything for everyone, it is that mental health awareness is critical, and that those resources are so necessary. And that if you aren't providing that kind of a conversation or access in your workplace, it's something you really need to look into and develop a solution that's right for your people.
Oh, here. And on that same note, Mindi, I know that you've done some remarkable things also to help people still feel like they're part of community and celebrating. I talked to Mindi during the Halloween period, and I wonder if you can maybe share some of the fun things that you did.
We like to throw parties, and so we've just challenged everyone in the company to reimagine what our traditions might look like. And so instead of having all of our little people come trick or treat from office to office to office in our building, we did a drive-through where we provided some Halloween goodies and took pictures of families in their costumes, and just and I can't even tell you this without getting emotional. So it was such a small thing for us to do, but because life is so disrupted everywhere, it was so big to our families. And that was trick-or-treating for so many of our employees' children. And that was the big family outing for the month for so many of these families. And to just watch the outpouring of gratitude for something that was took minimal creativity, minimal resources, a very small amount of time, we weren't inventing something complicated or hard. We were just trying to be thoughtful about an experience. And every company has the opportunity to do that. And if you think it has to be big and grand, it doesn't. It just needs to be right for your people and demonstrate the care that you're trying to express to them. And I would just challenge everybody to figure out whatever that is for your company.
Oh, absolutely. And Chris, I know our Colliers office, we have an amazing culture. And I wondered if you could maybe share some of your thoughts in regards to, more simple tools and tricks that you've done to unite and keep the tribe connected. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. And I'm just sitting here really appreciative to be a part of this because I'm taking notes. I really, I'm hearing a lot about what makes us tick, and you talked about culture. It's about the people and connectiveness. So a couple of things we've been doing. We took our regular meetings, which are usually twice a month, and we've made them weekly. And I've been surprised and so impressed that 8 months into this, the attendance is exceptional. I think people do want to be connected, and it is about information for us to share for our clients. And so coming together allows us to pool that information, and then for us to be better advisors. That's what it's always about. But there's also this just wanting to see each other, to feel like you're part of something. It's so important. And then the other thing we've been doing is happy hours every week, and we've been inviting guest speakers in, and we've been trying to host dynamic discussions that really create an opportunity, not just an excuse to do another get together, but something of relevance that people can bring to their clients again. Kate, you and I have worked closely from the beginning to have the workplace be a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing that we did quite well at 111. We're following the guidelines. And so for those that maybe have loud dogs or small children or bad at Wi-Fi or just need a place, they've had a place to come. And as essential service, we were able to do that. And I think that's been really an important part of this experience as well, is finding how to make that connectivity and also safety at the office.
Yep. Now I'm going to change topics slightly, and that is really thinking about the competitive advantage if you did maintain a work from home type of a program. Is there thought, consideration in terms of being able to leverage that to be able to go after this tech talent in Utah that is so competitively held? Are you thinking differently about that, or what are your thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, I think the first competitive advantage is talent. Working from home, working remote is not a new concept. I think it's a little bit newer in Utah because we love buildings here. But the reality is the competitive advantages in a non-manufacturing position. If you can't work with an individual situation, you're not opening yourself up to the true talent that's out there, especially here in a state where some people don't have a choice but to work from home depending on the family circumstances. The talent competitive advantage is critical. And so you have to be flexible. You have to know your positions and know which ones you can be flexible on, because you can make the wrong decision and say this position's flexible and give it to a flexible person and have a mismatch. And so you have to be very prescriptive and understanding and surgical about your jobs, identifying which jobs are key for on-site, which jobs are flexible, and then use that opportunity to work with each individual candidate on a consistency basis on your principles to work with them on what works for them. So I think talent is a key advantage. Productivity is the second advantage I see. We have been surprised, and I've personally been surprised with the transformation on my own HR team, where when we went home, the productivity of outcomes went up, and it went up in a way that people were able to focus on what they needed to get done in a world where meetings dominate our schedules. And you get then at the end of the day and you try to figure out, well, how do I get done everything I signed up for? And people are getting things done more than they did before. And they're more connected because someone can just IM you and say, hey, do you have a quick second? And they're more considerate in that interaction versus just coming up into your cube or your office and saying, hey, I need to talk right now. So I do think the companies that were really looking at this with a solution mind found that you have to adapt your talent strategies to the future of how this operates when it comes to talent flexibility. And you have to be able to have outcome-based work in a way that helps people be more productive from on-site while being more connective to the people that need you.
No, that's great. Now, I'm curious, Kristy, given your broad experience in design and now real estate, what are your thoughts in regards to how the workplace may shift and change as we get closer to a return to office?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're in the mindset that work from home is not going away for LendingClub. The genie is out of the bottle. Post-pandemic, we will have a hybrid workforce where our employees will be able to work from home 1 or 2 days of the week. We're also developing a holistic program that will encompass not only work from home, but remote and virtual options for our employees. We recognize that allowing our employees flexibility is important, and it'll be a competitive advantage for us in retaining our current talent and attracting new talent. So some of the things that we're thinking about is how do we make the workplace the place employees want to come again? Why are employees going to unshelter to come back to the workplace during the pandemic and post the pandemic? So we're thinking through, making sure that the workplace is safe. In your survey, it said people are concerned about that. So we're looking at adding a touchless entry experience, touchless doors, faucets in our pantries, so people can move about the workplace safely. We also are thinking about what type of work activities and tools our employees are going to need in the office versus at home. What does the workplace has that the home doesn't have? And a lot of it is about in-person collaboration, in-person connection, and the culture, having a stronger sense of the culture in the workplace. I think people are going to that'll be one of the reasons they come back to the physical work environment. So we're thinking through all of those scenarios and making sure we have a workplace that's desirable and efficient for people.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And before we go into Q&A, which I want to leave 5 minutes for, Mindi, I know you guys have got a wonderful workplace, and that I think you were embarking upon some types of changes. Do you see a shift in your facilities or thinking about your workplace and preparing for a full return to office?
We definitely want to come back to our workspace. We've been very intentional about the way that we've crafted that experience, and we want people to experience it. It is part of who we are. Part of that has to do with our hybrid culture. We have 350 site-dependent employees who continue to manufacture and ship and process orders placed by our clients. We find an amazing connection when we have people from all different disciplines under the same roof and in the same building. And I always say it's different kinds of smart in the building. So the one thing that I see as a disadvantage right now is that we get people that kind of eddy in their same circle of creativity or their same circle of influence, where that was more organic of bumping into people before. So we've really even called that out as an organization and just said, ping somebody who you haven't seen but you miss over the last 3 months. You don't even have to have a reason, but bump into them with your technology. With the other thing I would just say as I'm listening to this, I think we had the assumption pre-pandemic, pre-forced home is basically what we're talking about. I mean, the pandemic is an influencing factor, but what we're talking about is a result of the pandemic. That a successful remote strategy was on the employee to execute. Now we understand that it is on the organization to execute, because somebody alone can't make everyone remember to, create a Zoom link to the meeting, and they can't create, a space for them at that table. So if this is something that we're going to value moving forward, it's something that we have to do as an organization and not just say to the employee, you want to work from home, figure it out. It is something that we've done as an accommodation. technique before, but not necessarily something that we've wholeheartedly embraced. And we're just realizing now that it's going to take us all to make it really successful.
I agree. I think it's the intentionality, and it will change company by company based upon your industry, your dynamics, your leadership. Before we move into questions, Chris, what's happening in the market? I mean, like, what are we starting to see in terms of workplace and the real estate changes and shifts? Anything?
Well, as I mentioned before, Utah is a really dynamic place, and we always weather these economic downturns better than other areas of the country. Right now, industrial is on fire. The Northwest Quadrant is slated to be a huge driver for us. Manufacturing has been definitely a big driver area. So on the office side, however, we are seeing companies in the tech, financial, and biotech areas being creative with their workspace, but actually committing to the bricks and mortar. We've had some landmark deals done here. I'm proud to say that Colliers has been involved in some big deals here across those sectors. But we are hearing a lot, to David's earlier point, about being agile and a hub and spoke model. I think Salt Lake is well equipped to handle this distributed workforce. I think Kristy mentioned in an earlier meeting that we had that people are moving out. They're trying to adapt to having people work from other areas. And on your list of companies there, Kate, there was a couple there that I work with and that are trying to go to that hub and spoke or agile workforce model. And they've identified Salt Lake as a mountain town or a town that people want to live in, and then I think that gives us opportunities. So I think our colleagues here that are active are kind of tapping into that momentum. That said, to my analogy, all things driving forward, but you've got a bit of a drag, that safety brake on. It's pandemic. People are being careful. They don't want to move too fast. They want to be careful, and that's okay. So we're seeing a little bit of it on both sides.
Okay, very good. I can't believe how this hour has just flown by. What we're going to do is we'll take any of the questions that have come in and we'll send those responses out to you with some follow-up. But I'd really love to ask our panelists one last question, just a quick little response. What has been your top silver lining through all of this? Dave.
Our silver lining has been being a global company. We were not as inclusive from a headquarters to a global standpoint as we wanted to be. And that leveling of the playing field has been very significant for us to be a global company. So we are a global company, truer than we've ever been because of COVID.
Oh, that's awesome. Kristy.
Yeah, I think it's our heightened level of communication out to our employees on a very frequent basis. Just keeping everyone connected on how we're tracking against our business goals and our business strategy, really just heightening the level of communication and engagement on a frequent basis with our employees. It has been very impactful, meaningful, and in a grounding way. And so I think that that's one of the things that we'll continue to do post-pandemic.
That's great. Mindi, is silver lining?
Yes, and in addition, I mean, we too have experienced both of the benefits that Dave and Kristy have mentioned, but I would also just say, increased transparency has been of paramount importance, and more people better understand our business than they did pre-pandemic. We each have a much more heightened sense of not only our purpose as an organization, but how we connect in through our roles to helping the business succeed in a very important way. And as more people understand how the business works, more people have better ideas for how to work it in a better way. And we're just trying to collect all of that up right now.
Oh, that's great. Well, Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you to hear your silver lining and then just to talk about what's next and wrap this up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kate. Terrific. And for our panelists, just really a pleasure to be involved. I think when I think of a silver lining, I think about our commitment to people and technology and growth. and I've been really pleased to see this company's commitment to that. And on a personal level, I have twin seniors, so I've been able to spend a little bit more time right before they're off to college. And Dave, I learned to roll a kayak this summer, so I noticed that you're a kayaker. So, I just want to thank everybody here, for your time. For those that attended, I hope you find that this is worthwhile. And again, we will. The intent of this is to continue and to deliver follow-up webinars as we continue to evolve and bring this thought leadership to you. We have recorded this session, and we will be sending out an email with this as well as the survey findings. Am I right, Kate?
Right.
And so we want to make that information available to all of you. And with that, knowing that we're 1 minute over, I think we'll end here. So I want to thank again our panelists and for all of those that have attended. I also have to give credit to our team here, Kate and I, and Lindsay Cleverly, who has just been fantastic helping us behind the scenes. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Take care.